Hi everyone, it's me, Darlene. I'm so sorry. I'm telling you this right up front so you're not mad. I could not finish the block, but I want you to have a video on the first. I started late. I only designed the flower block yesterday, and I did get to cut all the other pieces. And I end this video with saying, okay, let's put this with the other pieces, but I couldn't record today, and then I wanted to, and my computer was down, internet was out. So I hope it's up now. It should be, and so I can edit this. But I wanted you to have the video tonight. I don't want to be rushing to get that done, so I'm going to just do this part one, and then I'll have part two, hopefully tomorrow night, completing the block, and then part three with it quilted. Okay? That's the plan. I could say part 2 and 3 together, but again, I don't want to put too much on my plate. So I'm sorry, but at least watch the part of making the flower block, and the 1-inch squares that you're going to see to create the tulip. I really think they should be 1.5, and I wanted to experiment and tell you. But if you feel like experimenting, you could try 1.5-inch squares for the tulips. I just think it would give more definition to the flower. Or you can just do the 1-inch ones like I did. All right, okay, I feel so bad. All right, go watch the video now. It's coming up right now. We are going to make the flower block. I'm going to start with telling you the sizes of the background, because I want to make sure that you have enough. You want the background to all be the same fabric. You need 4 little 1-inch squares. You need a 3-inch square. And then you need some 1-inch strips. You don't really need them this long. I think mine are like 5. You need 2 that are like 5 inches, and then 2 that are maybe 9 inches long. Probably much less than that, but I like to just cut strips, and because I never know exactly how much I'm going to need. I can tell you when we get to that step how much I actually needed. For the flower, you need 4 1 3/4 inch squares. 4 of them. Please make them also matching, and do not make them directional. Make it so that they can be in any direction, because that's going to make snowballing these easier. We're going to be snowballing those with these little squares. And then for the leaves and the stem, you need a 3-inch square. Again, make these the same color, unless you want like a darker stem or something. I wanted green, but I also wanted a print, so I thought that was kind of cool. So you need a 3-inch square, and then a 1-inch strip. And I made mine, I don't know, I said you need at least 4 inches. Mine is just longer because I had a scrap that I happened to have cut. But you need at least 4 inches for that. Let's start with the stem. So you need the stem and the, what are these called? Leaves. You need the 3-inch square for the leaves and the 3-inch square for the background. You're going to put those together. Right sides together, and you're just going to sew all the way around. And now I'm going to the cutting mat, and I'm going to cut diagonal this way, diagonal that way, and then press those 4 little half square triangles open. And then you want to trim your little dog ears. And now we're going to sew these together like this. These two, I'm showing it to you as though you are looking at it, that this is the right direction for you. The green, in my case, so the leaves and the stem, you want them pointing up, and this one pointing in, this one pointing in, like that. These, you want them pointing out and down. So when that goes like this and this goes like this, see how it's going to end up making like a stem, not a stem, the leaf this way, and then that one this way. Now we have to sew them this way. This one has to go on this one because we need to leave room for the stem. So this one goes here, this one goes here. So let me just move this down. I'm going to just put this one on top here and sew. and don't freak out if they're not matching up perfectly. These are little pieces, and I always allow for wiggle room. Now I'll send these two through, and I want to sew them that way. Now I'll go press these open. Now I have them like this again. And again, don't freak out because these are not going to be even. We're going to be trimming, so it doesn't matter. But make sure you have them in this direction, like this leaf going this way and this one going this way. And just trim these two center lines a little bit. Make them even. They don't have to go like all the way to here. See how that's very uneven there? The green is way over here. That doesn't have to be, you know, brought all the way to that part. I just want a straight line because we are going to be putting the stem in there. So I'm just going to trim a little bit, make straight lines here and here. I'll show you after. I mean, I took off stuff like that. This is like the widest piece. I just wanted to make them straight. So you can see this little guy's still hanging on, you know, just like that. And now we need our lovely stem. And we're going to do the trick that can be confusing, but once you get the hang of it, you're going to like it. I want a very narrow strip of fabric there to make a narrow stem. But I'm going to start with this 1 inch. And see, it has to be longer than that. So all it has to be is like maybe 3 inches. I'm going to put these now facing me. And I'm going to go ahead and sew it on the inside of one. And I'm going to use about 1/4 inch. Now, if you want, if it makes you feel good, you can go press this with the iron. I'm going to finger press. It's okay if everything is a little bit wonky because it's a flower. Maybe it's wilting. Maybe the sun was too hot. So now, let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. I am. Now, I don't want to sew it like right on the edge of this 1 inch because see, when that's flipped back, look, we've got a tree trunk there, not a stem. So I'm going to put it much closer. You know, I could trim it if I wanted to. I'm going to do that. I'm going to trim it. I think maybe that would be easier for you to understand, but I need to remember that I have to leave room for a seam allowance. See, like if I were to sew this right here and fold that back, look at that, look at that. I'm going to just do it that way because it's harder to catch the fabric if you cut it. That's why we don't like to start with things that are narrow. Okay, so do that. Fold it back and then see, okay, that's what I like. Make a crease so you'll know what line to sew on. Now I'm going to just put that back this way and I can see my folded line and that's what I'm going to sew on. Okay, that's a little too wide for me, but you know what? Maybe I'll go with it. I think I'll go with that. I like it because it's a little bit narrower at the top, and maybe that's what a tulip. Oh, did I tell you this is a tulip? This is a tulip. Look at though how crooked my fabric is down here, and that's okay. Now, if I wanted to make it more narrow, then what I would do is I would go back here, and I would look and say, okay, this was my stitch line here. I would just go in and stitch a little bit closer to the center. But I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to go, no, it's too wide. All right, so I'm going to do exactly what I just said. I'm going to go in and stitch on the inside of where I just stitched. Well, it's a little bit more narrow. I'm definitely okay with that. I'm going to go press this. I didn't trim it yet, but I will when I need this part. Now let's do the flower. We're going to take our 4 1 3/4 inch squares and our 4 1 inch squares. And we're going to snowball these. And because you did not use anything directional, because I said not to, it doesn't matter what corner. You're just going to put this here, and I'm going to sew right here on the diagonal. And I'm not marking that, but let me mark it, I guess, just so you could see what it would look like in case you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to use a pencil here. And that, I did a pretty lousy job. But see, I'm doing these right sides together. And then I drew a line, corner to corner, and I'm going to sew on that line. And I'm going to do that to all 4 of these. I had a little bit of a train wreck on this one. I jumped on like way over here, but I think that's going to be okay. And now we just trim the corners, everything that's above the sewn line. Like that, we trim right above the stitched line right here. And go press these guys open. And these really are a hot mess. I mean, look at that. How could I even do such a bad job? It's because we're dealing with little pieces, and that can happen. And I'm going to, just gonna go with it. And hopefully I can show you that it still makes a really cool flower. Okay, for the bottom of the flower, we want our snowball sticking out that way, and this bottom snowball sticking out that way. We can sew these 2 together. That's going to be the bottom of the flower. Sewing right there. I'm leaving that right there. For these 2, we want the opposite. We want the snowball sticking in the middle at the top, and this one. So it's going to make like a V. So that's what we want going on there. I'm going to stick those together and sew. Now I can go press those, or I can just finger press. I think I might just finger press. I'm going to make them nest. I'm just going to put one seam going that way and the other seam going this way. Might help a little bit. And now we're going to sew those together. I've got my background on the outside bottom on pointing out, and these pointing in at the top. And that's what we want. Pressing this open. Now we are going to be sewing these together. Look how cute. I think it's cute. Now I actually got this idea from Missouri Star Quilt Company, but Jenny's were huge, and I made them smaller, and she used different prints for the flower, 4 different prints. I didn't want to do that because I wanted us to not have to worry about, which corner had to be snowballed and all that stuff. And so now what I'm going to do, since I'm sewing these 2 together, I'm just going to trim to make that straight. That and this. So I'll be right back. I have that trimmed, and I'm going to sew the flower to the stem. Look at how cute. I'm going to press, and then I'm just going to trim around just to make everything even. I'm not going for a particular size at this point. This is what we have now. Please don't worry if your flower is, has a little bit more of an angle here, or one side is thicker than the other, wider I should say. One side is wider than the other. Doesn't matter, it's a flower that's growing in nature and it's not perfect. Now we could have at this point put the black border around, but I wanted to put background around. What I usually do is the sides first and then top and bottom, but I'll do that with the black border. So for this one I'm going to do top and bottom first with these 1-inch strips that I told you about, and then I'll do the sides. So I'm just going to put this on here. And this is why I said you didn't need the strips as long as I have. But what you can just do is when you get to the point where you have just your flower, measure how much you need for the top and bottom, and then press those and then trim these, the flappy ends off, and then measure how much you need, that's going to go this way. Now I have this, and I think you'd be safe if for the strips, for the top and bottom, 4 inches should be good. And maybe 7, maybe 8, just to be on the safe side. You certainly don't need it to be as long as the one I have. So now we're going to add the strips on the sides. Whoops, I had to wind a bobbin, and then I forgot to turn the camera back on. But you know what I did. I just did both those sides, and now I'm going to go press that open. And just trim it so it's even. And you can trim more on one side if you need to than the other, or whatever you feel like doing. Mine came out to a little bit less than 4 inches wide by about 6.5 inches tall, but we're going to put the black border on it now. See, I like it with some of the background around it. I didn't want the black just right up to the flower, so I think I like this. So let me go get the black strips. I have my 2-inch strips. I'm using black for my border, and I just cut 2-inch strips the full width of the fabric, but I have a couple of scraps here, so they're going to work for me. Do try to trim this to somewhere around 4 wide by 6.5 tall. It can be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but just somewhere in that ballpark. And then when we add our 2-inch strips, that's going to give us room to trim to the exact size that we need to fit in the quilt block. And I don't know what that size is at this point because I haven't made it yet. But that's how we do it. That's why I started with a big border, a 2-inch border, because that gives us all the wiggle room that we need. So I'm going to do a strip on each side. I pressed, and now I'm going to do the top and bottom. Pressing and trimming, and I'll tell you what size it is. This is the finished block. It ended up being 6 wide by 8.5 tall. And remember, you don't have to make this. You can just put any piece of fabric that you want in its place that is 6 wide by 8.5 tall. It's not the kind of flower I imagined, but I wanted something that was fairly easy. And I think I would have liked my snowballs maybe a little bit bigger. I think maybe 1.5 inch would have been a little bit better, but hey, I think it's cute just the same. Now let's go put this with the other pieces. And now that part of the video is done, I forgot that I needed to say bye. So thank you for watching, and I'll have the next part up soon. I promise. Bye.